DJWoodBeats.com.
I can do anything. Fuck your opinions and energy. I finally got the epitome. My biggest hindrance was God can't do nothing but fail. Greater is me. I never needed your deity. All of this human capacity. When it gets rough, I can pick myself up and prevail. I can do anything. Fuck your opinions and energy. I finally got the epitome. My biggest hindrance was God can't do nothing but fail. Greater is me. I never needed your deity. All of this human capacity. When it gets rough, I can pick myself up and prevail.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Pastor Call-In Show. And damn it, this is round 2, and I'm super duper excited about it. Super duper excited to have you all in here with us. Thank you for hanging out with us. This is going to be just an excellent show. I'm interested to know how many of you actually joined us for the first one, and what you may have thought about that if you had the opportunity to engage, whether it was in the chat, on the show, or in the comments. Let us know, what did you think about that first show? I'm just kind of itching to kind of talk about it and see what's out there. And I have been reviewing the comments. I do want to let you know before we jump right into things, of course, do the like stuff, like the video, subscribe to the channel, go ahead and share this, because you know this is going to be an amazing time. And because, again, this is I don't know if there's anywhere else that you can go to and find this type of conversation, this type of engagement. And I just could not have asked for a better partner in the world. All right. So just to hit something, if you want your comments read tonight, please make sure to send a super chat. You send them, we're going to read them. We're going to engage them. And the reason we're doing that is because we know that so many of you are so excited, and we want to make sure that we're making time for our callers, that we want to be as focused as possible. But if you want to catch our attention, then send the almighty dollar. I don't know. I couldn't help it. I had to say it. All right. So again, welcome to the Pastor Call-In Show. My name is Darante LaMar. I am an ex-pastor. This is a space where your thoughts, questions, and struggles take center stage. Whether you're wrestling with doubts, curious about faith, or have burning questions you've always wanted to ask a pastor, this is the place for you. Here we value open dialogue and honest conversations, free from superstition and full of understanding. The Pastor Call-In Show is a product of DLDD World Group and The Bridge, and is a part of our commitment to help people find community, support, and resources without the presupposition of superstition. Just to make that make sense, we literally exist to connect you to people who want to help you without having to give you fairy tales to do so. I find that to be helpful in itself. We host this show monthly on every first Sunday in hopes of being a helpful outlet for non-believers, skeptics, and free thinkers who crave community and conversation. We have no gimmicks, no agendas, no politics to push. We're just a couple of ex-pastors who have both come to the conclusion that loving people is more advantageous than loving gods. So if you have something you've always wanted to talk to a pastor about, here's your opportunity. Maybe you're deconstructing, deconverting, or just decompressing. Either way, we love to hear from you. Get your questions and topics ready, then follow the link that we'll be throwing on the screen to join our screening room. Are y'all ready to start this show? If you are, please welcome me. Please help me welcome my friend, ex-pastor Kyle Butler, to the stage. Kyle, how you doing, man?
Doing great. How about you?
I am doing pretty good, man. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad that we're able to do this again. What did you think about the first show? I know we've asked other people about it. How did you feel about it?
That was great. I mean, it was
Man,
it was great. And in addition to that, it was more than I anticipated. I didn't
yes, sir.
anticipate it being, first of all, I didn't anticipate any callers on the first show. I really didn't. As far as anticipation, I thought, okay, we maybe need some ramp up time, give some time to let people get comfortable with what we're doing and how to engage in that area. But we had people ready to go right from the jump with some excellent questions and sharing some feedback. And I gave it all a lot of thought. And I thought, wow, that was really super. That was really special.
It really was, man. As a matter of fact, I cannot lie. I took the liberty of taking one of the clips from the show, and it was you just really sharing your story. I think it was the opener from last month. And man, it has my TikTok jumping. And so number one, I'll say thank you, Kyle. I appreciate that little
we do
boost.
what we can. We do what we can.
but it was beautiful because and I think that's why this show is so powerful right now, is because the things that you shared resonated with so many. And I think that is the unique perspective that those of us who wrestled with this idea of God from the posture of service. There's a difference in the posture of belief and the posture of service, right?
Right.
We pastored people who had the posture of belief. But we typically had the posture of service. So we typically took those extra steps of what the people who came to our services, they believed, but not necessarily enough to commit to our service. We took those extra steps. And so for us to walk out, it's a powerful position because we have not only the memories of what we experienced, but we have the memories of the people we served as well. And the many counseling sessions we had with them and all of those things. And so this has just been amazing. So out of kind of tradition, I've wanted to start this thing called extimony. I can be a little brand centric at times, but I come out of the urban seeker friendly churches. And so it kind of got baked into me. But before we start, Kyle, now that you've left religion and the attached ideology of God-assigned purpose, how do you navigate the nuances of life and find meaning without religious superstition? How do you manage to find purpose in your life if God isn't giving you that purpose?
I was talking to one of my siblings last week, and sometimes when we're having conversations, I can go on some of my tangents, and I just, not trying to convince them of anything, but just talking about, where I am, what I think, what I believe, and kind of my experience. And she said something, my sister said something along the lines of, well, I don't think all that stuff we did in church was necessary, but I still believe that, God wants to direct and guide our lives, and there's some things we should be looking for God to lead and direct our lives. And I said, I hear what you're saying, but when we think about it, when we really sit down and think about it, we really make the decision for every area of our life, and because there's some things that we were programmed to do for yourself, right? So, for example, you get old enough and your parents start to teach you, you should be big enough to dress yourself. You should be big enough to tie your shoes. You should be big enough to, figure out what you want to eat. And it's somewhere along the line, we get kind of guided and molded into making decisions. But if you grew up in the church world, you're also molded and guided into believe that these decisions you're free to make on your own. However, these decisions you need God's wisdom and guidance and instruction for. And I said, it's all programming. So if you take away the programming that you need God's to guide you for a decision that where do I work? Where do I live? Who do I marry? Those things that we're programmed to believe that God should be leading and directing us in. If you take away that programming, then you're right back to where you are with every other decision you make in your life. And that decision's on you. So now that I understand that, now that I live that way, that's how I govern my life, God free. This is my life. I make my decisions and I live with those decisions, right, wrong, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, doesn't matter. They're mine to make and mine alone. And I find that by making my own decisions, it's just so much better because I don't have to wait on a God. I don't have to wait for, we used to say, people used to ask me all the time, Pastor Kyle, how do you know that God is giving you an answer? And we were programmed to say, well, which one gives you the most peace? Whatever you're thinking and whatever gives you the most peace, that's where God is leading you. And we had to make this shit up because we knew there really was no audible voice. We knew there weren't any definitive, declarative declarations of a God showing someone anything. So we had to make shit up to make it make sense or to make it try to work. But the truth is, isn't that how we really make decisions about everything? We have options in front of us and we view these options and we say, yeah, I don't like that one. That one seems no. I don't like that option either. No, but this one, I like this option. This option seems to be the most feasible for me, or the easiest for me, or this is what I'm most comfortable with. So that's how we do it. We just rely on what we've been programmed from a natural perspective to do, and that's ourselves. Just trust yourself. Rely on yourself. You can do it because you do it in every other area in your life.
Man, that's so, it's like you've been doing it the whole time for real.
Yeah.
And that's I don't know if you've ever seen the show Westworld. Of course it was just recently rebooted, and in this show, which Anthony Hopkins did an excellent job of doing this, but they played around with the idea of consciousness and the bicameral mind in these manufactured synthetic robots, and these robots who were created and programmed, who were somehow becoming sentient. And at the end, there was just this one saying that this robot had after she realized that, hey, okay, I'm thinking these thoughts. And it was like, the voice that I've been following this whole time was mine. Right. And I identified with that statement so much on this side of deconversion, because it's like, no, it wasn't God leading me the wrong way. That voice was me. Right. I had crafted this voice in my own image and in my own limited understanding that was really, kind of inculcated by this echo chamber of church. And so which really gave me permission not to critically engage my decisions and what the consequences of decisions were, because there was always this idea that, God's will never fails, and that God has never lost a battle, and that, man, fuck the math, the anointing, hallelujah, favor isn't fair type of thing,
Right.
Oh, man. Well, I know we've gotten notice that we do have our first caller. They have not made it in the studio yet, but we are looking forward to them. But while we are waiting for them, I just want to add this, that among the many reasons that this show is unique is that we've adopted a production strategy that allows the option of joining us versus either audio only or also with video. And so when you join through our screening room, let our team know your preferences, and they will definitely help you get set up. And it looks like we got somebody joining the studio. And if my memory serves me correctly, they're going to be audio only. And while our team is making sure everybody is set up, beautiful. And this is Trey, he, him. All right, before we bring you up, Trey, I'm going to make some announcements. So you use this time to make yourself comfortable and feel really good when we get ready to pull you up. Thank you for whoever's running the back. That makes me feel good now. I hope I can take my hands off the mouse for a while. That would feel nice. But for a few announcements, as a friendly reminder, this show streams live every first Sunday of each month. For those interested in building community beyond superstition, join us every Sunday on this channel for Sunday sessions. And if you want your comments read aloud during tonight's show, send a super chat. We will read as many as we can. And production team, please be on high alert for those chats, just in case Kyle and I don't see them, because we'll be doing our best to engage the actual conversation. Speaking of which, we want to send a big thank you to the teams and the team members who make this show possible every month. And by every month, I mean month number 2. we've made it 2 whole months, and we couldn't have done it without y'all. So thank y'all so much. And that's my wife, that's Wes, that's Bree when they're here. So like it's and it takes a lot to make this happen. Kyle and I just we get to show up on camera, smile, and talk. The other people have to figure the technology out, because when they tell me something's going on, I just look at them like a deer in headlights. Like, I don't know what you're gonna do about it. Yeah. But you got to figure it out before showtime. I don't know. I'm ready to smile and talk. I don't know. No, I'm just playing. All right. So it looks like we do have Ty. And let me see here. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Let's drop these. And we can go ahead and bring Ty on the stage with us. All right, Ty, you are on with the ex-pastors, myself and Kyle. Tell us a little bit about your question. I see it on the screen. Talk to us a little bit about it.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me good?
Absolutely. Welcome on.
Awesome. No problem. And is it okay if we go by Trey?
Oh, yeah, sure. Certainly, Trey.
Awesome. And thank you guys for having me on. Also, to explain the question, basically, I just want now, since you're out of, the background of being in nutrition and everything, what is your objective viewpoints? And also hello, Mr. Kyle, sorry, I didn't want to just ignore you.
No problem.
Both of your viewpoints about, what have you seen? What results have you seen from the youth with that you pastored throughout the years at your churches?
Ooh, okay, Kyle. Since Trey just kind of dismissed you at the beginning and then brought you back in, I'm gonna let you lead this one. And Trey, I'm just playing with you. It's all love. I know you didn't mean to at all. But I think this is a perfect segue. I do have some thoughts. But Kyle is our guest host, and he's actually a special guest host. He doesn't know this, but I'm trying my best to recruit him back into the ministry on the secular side. And I know it's going to be hard work, but I'm doing my damn best to get him over here. But Kyle, I'm gonna let you go ahead and hit that one first. Talk to us about this question.
Well, let me start by saying this. I was raised in the church, and if I'm honest, I could have done without it. I could have done without that whole process of being raised in the church. I don't have any children yet, but I've already made up my mind that my children will never know church, Christianity, or anything of that nature. I don't think that children should be involved in that process. I don't think children should be in those settings, and for many reasons. For whether it's a fear that that's created within a child when you start talking about hell or devil, whether it's the multitude of questions that children raise about this topic and will never get answers from their parents or any other adults in their environment, and also the indoctrination of it all. Because it's very difficult once you're indoctrinated with the belief to break away from it. It's very difficult. And some of the most traumatic things we've experienced in the trauma department of Christianity is because of the indoctrination and how incredibly difficult and painful and hard it was to break free, because we're talking about a programming of our minds that had gone on for years and years and years and years and years. So I don't think the church has any ability to teach children. I don't think the church should be teaching children. I think that should be left up to the parents. I don't think the church can teach children morality. I think that's something up to the parents. And so just like we don't let children vote, we don't let children drive, we don't let children do a lot of things because we understand they're not mentally and mature enough yet to handle those things with any type of real ability. So I feel the exact same way about the church.
Okay. No, I really appreciate that.
Wow. Yeah, I was gonna ask you, Trey, before I put in my thoughts. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to that? Because man, Kyle just unloaded, and it hit me in
Yeah.
all the right spots.
No, like for real, because I honestly like, bro. Sometimes I be thinking crazy because like that's what I be thinking too. Because I really haven't myself. I haven't seen any positive results at all. I grew
Hmm.
up with my cousins in church, and it's like all of us are just in the same camp right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I just started deconstructing last year. Um, so I'm relatively new. I've really honestly just I think in February got to the point where I was like, yeah, this is not this shit ain't real. Like I'm sorry. Like I was just like I just and it's so, and then and then I wasn't trying to like disprove anything. I was getting to a point where I was like, okay, if I can't do this, or if this is going to be this, but everybody's telling me different stuff, okay, well then let me go to like the source.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like go and like find like, okay, where did this come from? Who wrote this? Oh, and it's like what you were saying, Mr. Kyle, like the stuff that they were teaching us, like, and I'm trying to be with like a gracious hand and think the best of people's intentions, but like oftentimes I felt like straight up lied to my face,
Yeah.
and just like infantilized intellectually, um, and it's just like I'm, I'll try to limit my cussing, but like I can just like you're
Oh, you're good.
bullshitting me,
Yep.
but you can't say that as a child, obviously. And with me personally, my what's crazy about it is my family, we that is our church. Like,
Yeah.
my great grandma, she was the pastor of the church. So basically, I had my whole family in the church. That's all I knew was like
Wow.
family and church for the
Yeah.
longest. And like, they're very loving, very joyous. It was never like, and I feel you, Kyle, when you're talking about they shouldn't be teaching kids stuff. And I with like hell, torment, with sin, and like I'm 6. I don't need to have a conversation about like getting married and like my legacy as a like I'm just like gaining a subconscious. You feel me? Like this is
Yeah,
like a lot to process.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But for the most part it was fun. Um but that's what they do when like as a kid, like they make it fun in a way. And then
Yeah.
so it hits and it hits like real like hard when it's like, oh whoa, okay, this is like we gotta start taking this serious.
right.
But
Yeah.
like how you said, Kyle, like if I'm gonna take this serious, like I want to ask questions, and then when I'm
Mm-hmm.
asking questions, like simply like, hey, auntie, like if God was Jesus supposed to come and say everybody, like what about the Native Americans? Like what about like the Aboriginals? Like what
Yeah.
what happened to them? Like the Mayans, the Pacific Islanders, like and I don't even remember what she said. All I know was just some bullshit. I was just like I like, but that's my auntie, that's my family. I'm like, they not gonna lie to me. Like maybe she just got the wrong information. You feel me? But yeah, yeah, but yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot. I agree. I agree.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna share a few thoughts, and we still got a little bit of time. So if you want to hang on the line a little bit, you can, and we'll
Absolutely.
kind of do the same thing in a few. But my mind is permeating with quite a few things here, because I know when I first started deconstructing and deconverting, that was one of my things, that like, hey, if you want to keep your child protected and make sure your child has a healthy sense of self, keep them out of the church. If you want your child to have a productive view, because one of the things that I noticed that propaganda did was propaganda created this idea that there is a difference between the street and the church. And there is not. Is the people who are in the streets believe the same things that the people who are in the church believe,
Yo.
which is why when you get to the BT Hip Hop Awards for the past 30 years, they're gonna get up and say, first, I want to thank God, you know what I'm saying, who's the head of my life. It's the same group of believers. But another thing that I like to highlight for people is the correlation between belief and abuse cannot be overstated. There is a high correlation of belief and abuse. And the reason this happens is because when you believe something, you lend yourself to magical thinking. And every single one of us, for the most part, who went through life as teenagers at some point, knows what it feels like to be naive at some point, right? To believe that something is going to work out just because you really, really want it to believe that, you know, that because love is in this person isn't going to cheat on you. It's those type of magical thinking, but it's even deeper, because it's this idea that there is this exact blueprint, and if you follow it the right way, then it's going to work out. So if you train up your child in the way that they should go, in the end, they shall not depart from it, because children are a blessing from the Lord. Children are a gift from God. But at the same time, if your children disrespect you, you kill them. At the same time, you stone them, or you reinforce into them this ideology that your righteousness is tied to compliance, not identity, not authenticity, not experience, just simply compliance. When you take these type of beliefs and you make them a part of parenting, when you make them a part of raising children, what you really get is to say it in a way that people would really understand it and feel it, is you get colonization. What we are doing is we are colonizing our children. We are domesticating our children. And the problem is when you really do that, and I think many of us who deconverted probably had that feeling, it's like, holy fuck, I've lived my whole life not knowing how to live my damn life. And that is like the worst thing you can do to a child, is to condemn them to these types of ideologies that is going to make it hard for them to navigate life. Because, like, think about when you truly believed in something magical, and when it didn't work out right, it elicits a type of rage from people that is often difficult to overcome. And that's what you get in parents who absolutely believe that if I raise my child in the word of God, they won't misbehave. Then when that child does misbehave, that parent is bewildered, because their mind is, this was supposed to work. And then all of that built up rage, they're going to be tempted to take out on the child. But in that way, you can see how it doesn't just impact, parenting, but also how we do relationship with each other. Because if you have this idea that if I just be a good leader, then my spouse should never question me and should always think that I'm the best thing since sliced bread, then when they're not, in your mind, the magic's not working, and one of you must be the reason that the magic's not working, instead of it just being that there is no magic and that people are people. And it becomes very, very repressive. It becomes oppressive. And when especially when it's outside of the realm of people who have the tools of community, it becomes absolutely abusive. And the real damage that's done there is you teach children not to believe or even trust in their own capacity. And I find that to be, horribly not just dangerous, but I also find it to be irresponsible. And that's my little 2 cents on that, Kyle, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I wanted to just add a little bit to what you just said, especially the rage or the frustration that a parent can feel when a child goes wayward, so to speak. I grew up in the church, so there was a large amount of young people that grew up in the church, but only a very small handful of those young people that I grew up with in church made it through their adolescence, teenage years, what we would call okay. Only a very small percentage. A lot of the young women still ended up having children before they're married. A lot of the young men still ended up turning to the streets at some point or in some way. Some of them ended up in jail. Most of them ended up out of the church. There were only a handful that remained. So, you really need to start to ask the question, did it really work? What good did it really do? So we just really got corralled into a place that, even though Trey said at times they made it fun, at times they tried. But how can you really make that environment fun, right?
Literally.
You don't understand what they're talking about. You don't feel what they say they feel. And oftentimes you're demanded to sit there like a child in an environment where you really can't relate. I remember getting pinched and then getting spanked when I got home because I wouldn't sit still in church. I don't sit still anywhere. Why would you expect me to sit still in church when I don't understand what's going on? I can't relate to everything you do. I don't. And I got punished for that. And when I think about it now, that's some of the trauma that I have to unpack. Like, why couldn't you, Mom, as a mature adult, realize what you were putting me through? And why did you not have an expectation that I was going to be a little kid, restless, not being able to connect, not being able to understand, and feeling like I can't wait to go home? Why couldn't you understand I was going to fall asleep? Why wasn't that acceptable? You know? So all those kind of things, you look back now, you have to unpack and deal with and try to get the answers for. And most of the time, the best they will come up with, well, Mommy did the best she thought she can do. She was doing the best she could. Okay, that's fine, but I still want you to address how that made any sense and how it makes any sense now. So tell me, you know what? Now that you bring this up, now that I'm thinking about it, Mommy shouldn't have done it that way. Don't tell me you did the best you could. You just trying to do. No, because that doesn't do anything to advance my healing. Matter of fact, it makes me a little bit resentful and angry. It makes me feel like you can't relate to me, or you're choosing not to relate to me because you feel like it's going to violate your faith, and you're putting your God above your son, and that's a problem for me.
Goddamn, Trey, I'm going to bring you back in. I am going to bring you back in, but he just said so much, and like, oh, my mind is firing, and not only does it not do anything to advance your healing, Kyle, but it doesn't do anything to advance their healing either. If you're still thinking this was the best you could do, then you are being willfully blind to what you were actually capable of doing and what the options were on the table. But another thing that I think we slipped up on, and I'm going to make this quick because I am interested in what Trey has to say before we move on. But another thing I think we slipped up on is that the streets may very well be the byproducts of the church. The children that the church let down and couldn't keep a hold on. And that's why they are still, because one of our mutual subscribers, paying homage, just made mention that as being a former Crip, like they used to pray before going to take territories. You know what I'm saying? And so these often, I've never met a gangster who wasn't a believer. You know what I'm saying? Like literally never. And I know there may be some out there, but as far as the culture wise, it was always a part of who they were. So I wonder if where these children come from, where these young men and young women come from, are people who have heard the message their whole lives that there is absolutely nothing in the world for you, that the world is evil, the world doesn't like you, the world doesn't want you, your only safety is God. But then when they get around the church, these kids are so neurodivergent that they see the bullshit early, and therefore are rejected from the church and are forced to fend for their own. And, you know, and I wonder about that. Huh, that got me thinking. Trey, I'll let you talk. I know I've been hogging your time.
No, y'all, no. You guys definitely, because I didn't want to lead with the abuse stuff either, because I was like, I wanted to be very, I didn't want to just go full throttle, but I'm not gonna lie, like with the whole spare the rod spoil the child, like I just never got that. I just never, like, I was just, to put it plainly, I was just getting my ass beat for everything. And I'm like, yo, like, this is crazy. And then it's like, it's not enough that the last whooping didn't work. And now I gotta up that. Now I gotta up that, and then up that, getting like, anyway. But yeah, the abuse is just not, I don't feel like it was worth it. And like you said, Kyle, like, that's the best I could do. I'm like, no, the fuck is not. Like, what are you talking? I'm like, because I'm like, I got little sisters or I got little cousins and stuff, and they mess up, and my go-to is not, let me smack the hell out of him. Like, no.
Right.
And I'm knowing that, like, at 9, I'm like, that doesn't do anything, and that hurts. I'm that part alone, I'm like, that doesn't make me feel good. And I can't, even in that, my friend, I'm like, how can you say you love me, but like, you hitting me like a grown man, and I'm on a single digit number age. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And then it's like, now, like, I'm understanding, like, why I got a slick mouth sometimes, like, as an adult, because it's like, who's gonna whoop my ass now? And I don't like having that type of mind frame, because that's not healthy, and that's just, I'm better than that. But I try to, like, look back, and I'm like, I'm not seeing the fruits of that labor at all. Like, even if I'm like, okay, I deconstructed, I don't believe in God anymore, but like, I actually have my own house now, I actually have my degree now, I actually have, career now, and things like that. Like, dang, like, okay, she was on to something, but no, I ain't even got that shit. So, I mean, it ain't like I'm like out here, I got a job and stuff, like, don't get me wrong, and I got, paying my bills and stuff, like, I'm employed, but like, the aspirations that were put onto me as a child, and the goals that were thrusted upon me, like, I don't see the fruits of that labor. And just like, quickly, like, what really, really made me start, like, questioning, even just a sidebar, like, when people say, like, if someone was to tell me, like, you were never truly a Christian, honestly, I don't know how y'all feel about this, but like, I honestly feel like, to me personally, and I don't want anybody else to take this on, but to me personally, that actually comforts me. Because I'm like, thank God I was never
always say thank you.
Yes, like, I'm glad I was always on the know. I'm glad I was always, up thinking y'all hoes, because like, this shit just, it wasn't. So thank you. Like, thank you. I'm glad that, like, I was just like, certain things just, I refuse to do apologetics. And then, like, growing up and like hearing apologetics, I'm like, wait, why are we just lying?
Hey, look, we were in it, but not of it. That's what it was.
Like, I was in the choir, I was in the dance teams, I was in the step teams, I was in the little, what's his face, I was literally in everything. And I something to God, like, in the last night you just got, like, a beating of your lifetime. It's not, that stuff carries over. But even just outside of, like, that abuse, just like, I feel like this is the missed opportunities from my mom, honestly. Like, even outside of me, like, I know she was stressing, I know this was like the only thing she really thought she had to do. And I, like, my heart goes out to her, and not just like in the sense of whatever happens to me, just what her, like, her choices have been led by this. And it's hard to see that. It's honestly hard to see that sometimes. But she's at a good point in her life now. She's apologized and stuff before. We really came to a heart to heart about everything, like, a couple times, but it's like, I feel like we're just caught in these cycles of, like, just, separating and then getting back together. But then, like, there's always like this unspoken stuff between me and her. She's really trying to be very, very understanding of, like, me and my situations. Now she's really, really calmed down. She's really, really, like, more thoughtful and aware of what she's doing. But now it's kind of like not too. I don't want to say it's not too late because it's it's nice. It's better than nothing. But I just like I'm like dang, like I wish she was always kind of like this.
Yeah. You know
Mm-hmm.
what? I want to, as we close out, because I know we got some others coming on, but I do want to thank you, Trey, for being on the show with us today because you have, like, man, you've brought a very incredible, very incredible conversation to the
Yeah,
forefront. And
thank you.
and I want to add something to it, just with the just kind of with the final things that you were closing on. It's just this aspect of wanting, your mom to be able to even, recognizing and acknowledging that she's made progress. In your words, like she's chilled down a little bit, but also wanting her to be able to get to this other space. And one word of advice that I could give there is that we have to learn how to the safest thing you can do for a believer is treat them like a human because nobody else is.
Yep.
And when you already have the ear of the believer, if you will start doing little small stuff like, oh, mom, remember, you don't have to do that around me. You can just be yourself. Mom,
Mm-hmm.
if you feel that way, just say that. It's stuff like that that will help reinforce those moments, especially if she's already been willing to make progress, because you have like a laundry list who are not willing to take those steps in those
Right.
directions.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do, you have every right in the world to be strategic about moving forward. And the way that I suggest doing that is being that person in their life that you want them to be able to be in yours. And that's that person who accepts them for who they are. And that's something they're not going to be able to get from any other believer, you know. And that will give you a unique stance in that person's life. And the hardest thing, I think this is also like a hard thing for Christians, and Kyle, I'll let you kind of follow up on this. But the moment they see that you're a better vessel of the love of God without believing in God, oh man, it does something to it. I like, and Kyle, because that's like your whole stint. So I'll let you talk about that a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah. It definitely does something to them. It makes them angry.
Right?
Um, I try to shine the light on the Christian narratives, right? And not necessarily trying to shame Christians, but trying to shine the light on them in the way of, hey, why are people who you call in the world, why are people you call non-believers or non-Christians, why are people you call devils and demons, why are people you label bad, wrong, not part of the fold, not part of the family? Why can I trust their love more than I can trust your love? Why is that? So I try to shine that light in there in hopes of they'll take a look in the mirror and say, you know what? We need to do better. We need to do better. We need to love better. We need to be more inclusive with our love. We need to not be so judgmental. We need to be sincere about our love. We need to be sincere about keeping relationships intact, even in the midst of disagreements about beliefs or whatever they are. Because I know I grew up in a church environment where the narrative was it's us against the world. And so when we would leave church, everything was the world. So it was easy to look at people who didn't pray like we prayed and dance like we danced and shouted like we shouted and went to church like we went to church and did all the things we did. It was easy to look at people and automatically look at them like they were less than or not worthy to be in our presence or not worthy of our attention or love or whatever. And that was very difficult for me to break out of because that was programmed so deep within me. It's us versus them. We're the right ones, everyone else is wrong. And it's impossible to love people from an inclusive perspective when you have that mindset and when you've been programmed that way, because you'll always think you're better than, you always think you've got it right. You always look down on people. Your love will be kind of more self-serving, more so than genuine and sincere. And that's why we always used to say, and or the people who we called in the world used to say, man, you Christians are phony. Y'all are full of shit, man. Y'all are some hypocrites, because they can pick up on it right away. And now that we're on the outside, somewhat looking into their world, we can see it too.
Man, oh my goodness, you hit the nail. You hit the nail on the head, because God damn it, I can see it like I've never been able to see it before. And it's like, I don't know what your experience was like coming through it. You and I haven't had those type of conversations yet.
Yeah.
But I know for me, there were moments where I thought I was seeing it, and then I was just like, no, maybe I'm being deceived. Maybe I'm just looking at this wrong. Maybe there's just something I don't understand. But now I'm more committed to calling a spade a spade. But one thing I can say, and I won't cease to say, is that what I could really respect about your platform is you really have made this idea of loving people paramount. And that, and even with, especially in this season, which is a very political season, you have done well navigating that, which is often very difficult. It's a lot, but like you make it clear where you stand without having to villainize anybody else, and trying to find ways to heal us. And I think that's so important. So very important. We actually got a super chat. And this is actually another brother that I'm doing I can't say my best, but I'm talking like I'm doing my best because I want everybody to know. And that this is another brother that I would absolutely love to have over here on the secular ministry side of things. And this is Dr. J. Bundy. He has a joke of the day. Hey, Darante, don't you want to join the children's table? Hell no. I heard that the teacher has cookies. Don't you want a cookie? Now I'm gonna be honest with you. It depends on what's in those cookies. Now, if you tell me what's in these cookies, there are a certain cookies, type of cookies that I do have an affinity for. But without the need to incriminate myself, I will plead the fifth from this point on. Man, thank you so much. I'll read your YouTube name, Experiments in Prebiotic Chemistry, who also has a show on Sundays. Everybody, please check it out. Thank you so much. That's love. We appreciate you. We appreciate you for that, for sure. All right. And I think we got another caller that's getting ready to come in. And before they do, I told you all last week that if you left comments, we'd pull some and talk about them on the show. So guess what? I pulled one of them comments, and we're going to talk about it on the show. And we'll have a few, depending on how many we can get through tonight. Let me see here. I just had a message pop up. All right. Ooh, so our caller is getting ready. So let's hit this while our caller is getting ready. Kyle, this is from I Am Cali 7349, who commented on last month's show. New here. I'm 54 and have pretty much deconstructed over a period of about 20 plus years. It was a gradual process. I think the saddest thing for me was realizing how divisive Christianity really is. Dang, how like, isn't that the perfect segue?
Yeah.
She says, and I don't know if this is a she, so let me stop there. Seeing my fundamentalist family member talk so much about unbelievers and then accusing me of being of the world, which was meant as the worst kind of put down, I quickly got the impression that I was now an outsider and no longer respected because I no longer believed the exact same way they did. I could feel the us versus them mentality so much more hurtful as I became agnostic. I was then labeled as confused or lost, but the only thing I really am is not convinced. And goddamn, that should be a whole T-shirt right there.
That should
I'm
be,
not confused. I'm just not convinced.
Not convinced. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
That was beautiful.
I love that.
Oh,
that really sums it up. I mean, that really sums it up. I was never confused about this. I was never confused about the data that I had in front of me that validated the fact that this stuff was bullshit. I was never confused at the data I had in front of me that acknowledged that prayer didn't work, I was confused about the data I had in front of me that, your tithes and offerings, your giving to God would cause this God to return to you and bless you abundantly and bring you out of financial distress. Yeah, I was confused, not at all.
Mm-mm.
you know,
Mm-mm.
I looked at the data. If there were any confusion, I was confused as to why I stayed there so long believing that bullshit. That's where I was
Yes,
confused. Like,
sir.
boy, I said something once, Darante. I said, especially in the about the arena of giving, right?
Yeah.
Um, I said, Kyle, what was wrong with you? You've always been an observer of people all your life,
Yeah.
and I had never seen it work for any Christian around me. And again, I grew up all around Christians. I had never
Mm-hmm.
seen anyone become successful in giving and God blessing them, and they gave and God blessed them and turned their situations around and got them out of financial stress. I've never seen it. Never
Nope.
seen it. Never seen it. And I can't believe that I didn't take that data before I jumped in headstrong and headlong and started doing it myself.
Yes, sir. Oh, man. It was our blueprint to success, Kyle. We're going to
Right?
give our way to overflow, brother. Come on now. Sow
Yeah.
that seed.
Yeah, but we had never
Hallelujah.
seen it. We had never seen anybody do it successfully.
Nope.
And we jumped
I
in with
was so
everything we
easy to
had.
lie to. Oh, man. Oh, that's so real. Like, Kyle, if I can go back and get all my church money back, do you
Oh
not
God.
know? Oh my goodness. Like, cause I like as smart as I was naive enough
Mm-hmm.
to get caught up in that stuff. Like, so
Yeah.
I gave Dr. Vernon probably cumulative $12,500 over 3 years. Each
Yeah.
time writing checks, 1,500, 2,500, 3,500 in a moment of where the preaching, is really
Mm-hmm.
high. And these were all
Mm-hmm.
at leadership conferences. So
Mm-hmm.
the message is targeted to, hey, you've been struggling over that church, you've been
Mm-hmm.
praying,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm here to let you know that God hears your cry
Mm-hmm.
and this is
Mm-hmm.
your season. And if you
Mm-hmm.
would take that leap of faith and
Mm-hmm.
sow this seed right now.
Yeah.
And I can remember like wrestling in my mind, thinking like, am I robbing my church by not, sowing the seed?
Yeah.
Am I keeping people from not coming to the faith by not, writing this check? And I can remember one time I was getting ready to write a $500 check, and it's like I felt this consciousness in me saying, "Now you can do better than that." Like, because in my
Mm-hmm.
mind, there's these stories of like Ananias and Sapphira
Yeah.
who, made this commitment to give God or give the apostles a certain amount
Right.
and then change their minds on the way up. And then God killed them. And then
Yeah.
it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, snap. I don't want to be that. But kind of going back to what you said, like I had no evidence. Not only did watch this, not only did I have no evidence that this had never pushed anybody forward financially, I
Right.
also had no evidence that anybody had ever been punished for this. As a matter of fact,
Mm.
I got a little story that exists in the crevices of my mind when I was a teenager. I was still committed to the Lord. And I had
Mm-hmm.
just got one of my first paychecks. And I do see that our caller has just jumped in. So I'm going to wrap up in a few. But I just got one of my first paychecks. And I was a part of one of those churches. Yay. I was a part of one of those churches who preached first fruits and
Mm.
things of that nature. And so I felt so compelled after a Friday night prayer service that I needed to give up that whole check. And so I put it in the basket. And so, we had prayer service. I felt really good, felt like I had did what God wanted me to do. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like I had woosah'd and I was on my way home in my little Ford Escort pony with a trunk that won't close all the way. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
was on my way home. And then I started thinking like, bruh, you really do need that money. And so like I literally turned around because I had a key to the church. And after everybody had left, I went back in that basket and got my check up out of there. I've never told anybody this story. Maybe this is why God never blessed me after that moment. because I said like, no, fuck that. I need that money. Like, I have to live, and I've not seen this work.
The anointed had lifted off of you.
Right? Oh my goodness.
You came out of the spirit.
Look, hey, look, the glory was gone, bro.
The glory
I
cloud
started
had
thinking
lifted.
about it.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, bro, like, you come from a family where your mama left you in debt with her phone bills and shit like that. Hey, you kind of need that money, man.
Yeah.
All right, so before we move on to our next call, we do have a super chat, and this is from Trey. Trevon Fox, sorry that my call dropped, but I really appreciate your views on this, and I really enjoyed the information. You both really resonated with me. Brother, that blesses like my whole soul, my whole heart, cause literally that's what we are in this for. All right, so we have our next caller, which is easier said with Meg, she, her. And her question is, she wants to continue the conversation of how being raised in the church with the notion if you train up a child this way, they will not depart. Didn't actually work. Any thoughts on this? All right, Meg, we are bringing you on the stage, and I'm assuming Meg, easier said with Meg, is audio only. Talk to us a little bit. Tell us about your question so we can hear it in your words.
Yes. Hello, guys. I recently discovered this channel. I've been in the comments giving the poor
Yes.
fellas hell, y'all. I've been in the comments giving
that's
it to them.
hilarious.
But a little about me. I'm from Texas. I'm 31. I'm agnostic. And I was baptized in a modern like Christian church at 14, I believe. And my deconstruction happened with just watching a lot of cult videos. Like, wow, this cult is crazy. Good thing I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
But I wanted to add when we were talking about, being raised up in the church and how you said one of the ex-pastors said it still led to women, having babies out of wedlock. It still led to men turning to the streets. And like for me, I know myself and all my peers, none of us are in the church. And we're not in the church because of the shenanigans that went on in the church. And I remember just being like a child and um, when we were testing out different churches, my mom's like personality and demeanor and how she praised and how she worshiped would completely vary depending on what church setting we were in. So if we were in
Yeah.
like that down southern like hollering, kicking your heels, kicking your shoes off tambourine, she would do that. But if we were in like a modern like church with like mostly like white people, she wouldn't cut up the same way. And I'm like, why are you not cutting up the same way? Like I thought it was in your spirit. Like I would just be like blown away. Like I used to remember thinking like, are we supposed to like perform like this or like and even now I only go to church once a year, which is on Mother's Day with my mom, so she can
Oh.
prance me around the church and be like, I have a daughter that loves me or whatever. And even then, like I'm a lesbian and I look like one, but when I go to my mom's church, I'm like, okay, let me take my piercings out. Let me cover up this tat. Let me put something to cover my crazy dyed locks, and I just like do this like conforming thing for like a couple of hours and I feel suffocated and then I just do it, because my mom's old and then after that, so that's my little spill. Sorry I talked a bit because this is
No.
my first time up here. Yeah.
No, I love it. And the first thing
Me
I
too.
want to say is that like I'm a lesbian and I look like one needs to be a t-shirt. Like that, like that needs to be a whole t-shirt. Like what you staring for? Yes, I'm a lesbian and I look like one. What?
Yes.
Like
Well,
that can be a whole brand.
and I even put it in the chat, and this is true. So if oh man, we could talk about church all day, but the churches where people like lay hands to deliver sexual spirits or whatever,
Yes.
I said, you know what? I'm a lesbian, and one of the mothers of the church clutched her chest and had a heart attack.
Oh no. Oh snap. You got
Wow.
superpowers.
Wow.
So
Oh
everyone,
bitch, you got
so
superpowers. This is awesome.
everyone's like,
Oh,
see what you did. See how the Lord doesn't like this. Look what you're doing.
Wow.
yes. Man, like I would have literally tried to find everybody I didn't like and say, I'm a lesbian, bitch. Ah, and see
Yeah,
if it would work
so
again. Like, god dang. Oh
they
my
they
goodness.
survived. They survived. Um, but yeah, and I don't think they really like they just were super dramatic. But to hone it all in, I just wanted to let y'all know like who I am and what I'm
Yeah.
about because I've been stalking the channel for a while. But I never really bought into it. Like sometimes I would buy
Uh-oh. Look like you
I
dropped
just
a
felt
little bit.
like
There we go.
I do like a good gospel song, but for the most part, I just felt like, oh, this is like playtime, but like for adults. Like this is like where we
Mm-hmm.
all go like one day and we like do our little roles and like and I told Darnea in the screening, I play the piano. I've been playing since I was 4. So I've been
Nice.
playing the
Wow.
organ since I was 6. And I told
Ooh.
her
Holy shit.
maybe I would like the church more if I wasn't forced to play the organ every Sunday. Since I was,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you say like,
Free
oh,
free
like,
talent.
yeah, we're doing this so
Free
you
labor.
can we're doing this so you cannot stray or come back. But really you just make I don't even play the piano anymore. I don't I grew up with a grand piano in the home. Like I used to have like little keyboards and stuff in my apartment. Like I went and I pawned it. Like y'all sucked the joy out of me playing the piano and the organ for pleasure.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's just that's it. That's all. Just sometimes it's like my original question, if you train a child up in this way and they will not depart, like no, it's kind of like when you're holding on to something so tight and now it really wants to flee.
Yeah.
That's right.
It
You know, like I have some thoughts on it, and I'm gonna make mine quick. And Kyle, I'm gonna pivot over to you. But I do the first this I keep removing the wrong person, but I've talked about this a few times, and that is this idea that I think the majority of people who believe this scripture don't know the difference between training and telling. And so for many of the people, though they say if you train up a child in the way that they should go, what they really mean is if you tell a child to do this, eventually they're going to start doing this. And so parenting for people who believe this really just becomes telling a child over and over and over and over and over again and hoping that one day they will comply to that. And when I think about that, I don't find that to be a very effective way of parenting. Number one, let's just make it clear what it is not. Telling is not teaching, nor is it training. You know, and when we're talking about the way, because that's what this thing talks about, train the child up in the way that the child should go, not the way that you should want the child should to go. You know, and like look at me trying to make scripture make sense. That's not my goal. My goal is not to try to make the scripture make sense, but the point is to show that the people who often believe these scriptures are not capable of making these scriptures be more substantive than they are. So they take them at face value, and it literally becomes, I taught you the scriptures, so you should be a good child. And that's exactly what it is, Jeremiah. Do as I say, not as I do. So, you know, in order to really train somebody, you have to be disciplined in what you're training them in yourself. You have to understand those disciplines. You have to understand how those muscles work. And that's what the parent doesn't do. And so oftentimes scripture becomes an excuse to tell a child what to do without you ever having to learn if this is actually healthy or not. It's just like, look, I just trust. Look, grandma and them told me to do it. I didn't do it. My life didn't work out right. So your ass better do it or I'm going to beat you because I am so damn disappointed in the way that my life turned out. and I don't want to see you look like me. And that's what you will find in a lot of these situations where parents are punishing their children for being them. You're punishing your children for making the same type of decisions you made, making the same type of what you would call mistakes, when otherwise they're just living their lives off of the information that you gave them, which I always remind people, anybody who want to blame the current generation for anything should remember the generation who fucking raised it. And what I realized among parents who are believers is that they often separate themselves from the responsibility of the children, in the sense of, because they, this idea, well, I told you what to do. They never go back and inspect, like, wow, did I really train my child how to navigate life? Did I watch this? Did I even try to learn how to navigate life? And is maybe that the reason why I wasn't able to train my child on how to navigate? And then the real issue here, this is how complex this shit gets, is that if you're the type of parent who didn't even try, and then you start raising a child who starts trying, that child becomes an indictment against your not trying. And so you then, like, even when they're trying to do better and trying to figure shit out, you tend to become very abusive, very condemning of them. What do you think about that, Kyle?
Well, Darante, I was also going to say, as I tried to think about a way to explain that scripture, I was also going to say, I'm not trying to validate scriptures because I'm trying to do everything to invalidate them.
Come on. Yes, sir. Right? Yes, sir.
But being a former pastor, having studied the scriptures and studied that a lot.
Yeah.
Solomon there, if you read it in context, and there is a contextual aspect to it that clearly indicates he was talking about money and financial matters. That's number one. Number two, when we take the Bible and try to make it authoritative, what we'll do there is say Solomon's words are more valuable than my words.
Yes, sir.
And to which I now say, who the fuck is Solomon that I should listen to him over myself? So number one, they say train up a child. They're only thinking church.
Yep.
So what they're really doing is forcing a child, because you can't train a child in matters of church. You can force church on them. You can force these ideologies on them, but you can't train them. So in that context, again, of training, we're talking about things, I'm a contractor, right? And if I have a son or a daughter and they say, Daddy, what do you do? And I want to go to work with you. And I want to, and they start picking up hammers and saws and things like that. And they want to, Daddy, I want to help you. I want to do it too. I'm going to train them how to use a saw so they don't hurt themselves. I'm going to train them how to use a hammer, to drill. I'm going to train them how to make things straight and plumb and level. And I'm going to train them how to do that. Guess what? For as long as they use a saw, they'll know how to use a saw safely. So that train had nothing to do with religiosity or church or anything like that. Because remember, Solomon and those people, they didn't go to church. They didn't sit down with their children and say, let me tell you about the Lord. Let me tell you about Jesus. Let me tell you what you, that wasn't part of what they did. So we're using the word, the word authoritatively, and we're using it for instructions, and we messed that whole thing up drastically, and then we don't even know what he was talking about anyway. So even if we wanted to use it to say this is what we should do, we don't even know what he was talking about, because the data shows overwhelmingly that if you drag a child to church, more than likely, that child's going to become everything the church says they shouldn't be. And that's the data.
That is absolutely the data. Man, oh God, I love this show so much. Because like we just went through, you just hit so much in that little bit of time, because this was a big concern for me, Kyle. Like when I decided to go ahead and step away from the pulpit, it was partly because of the disingenuousness of so many preachers. Myself included, of realizing like, oh man, we're up here preaching stuff in context that it doesn't even exist in the book that it's in. And to me, that's just a type of lethargy that when we're claiming to know the truth and be presenting the truth, it's disgusting. We have another super chat tonight, believe it or not, and this one is from my homie Ichabod. Oh my goodness! Now, for those of you who don't know, now many of you, for the first time you saw me on YouTube, you likely saw me on the Stacy's Mom podcast, but my first actual interview was with Brady Goodwin on Ichabod, but it was pre-recorded, so it went live later. But like, Brady is absolutely amazing. They're out here doing this secular ministry work that I am doing my best to try to get Kyle over here in, and Dr. J. Bundy, who I mentioned earlier, get them out here back on the mission field on the other side. But no, Ichabod does great stuff. They have Nurch going on their channel, which is not church. And Kyle, I think you'd appreciate this. Right now, they've been going through the book of Romans, and they all come from, well, they do come, it's three of them, and they come from very different perspectives, but they've been very grounded in more reformed theology. And so they are ripping Paul a new one. Like, they are walking through the book of Romans and showing man, come on, talk to me a little bit about that.
Rightfully so. Rightfully so. So much of the church models is modeled after what Paul said.
That's right.
Right. And here's a glaring truth about everything Paul said and did. Jesus is supposedly his example, or supposedly the church's example. Jesus is supposedly the head of the church. Jesus is supposedly the model, the prototypical person of what the church is. But yet Paul, who's supposed to be Jesus's, the apostle Jesus chose and called out on the road to Damascus. Paul mentions Jesus only once in all of those writings.
Come on.
One time. About communion. He mentioned something Jesus said only one time. Now, if you have a mentor and you're this heralded protege of this mentor, aren't you always going to be referencing back to your mentor?
Come on.
My mentor said, my mentor said, my mentor said, my mentor said, my mentor said. Even as you come into your own identity, you're always going to be pointing back to your mentor. Paul, my opinion of Paul, he hijacked a movement, made it his own movement for his own purpose.
Yes,
and
sir.
He tried to dominate it in such a way to keep people in his way of thinking. He was a flawed individual who was full of hatred and bigotry and all kinds of things of that nature. And I think Paul saw something that he can benefit from, and he took advantage of that. That's what I think about Paul. And the fact that the church model is so attached to what Paul said, I think it's really, really shows just how, I don't want to say stupid. I don't like to use those kind of words when I'm talking about people, but I think I can use the word stupid when I say just how stupid that whole thing is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's quite clear, like, because even when you read Paul's writing, he does like come off with this idea that I'm supreme, like, because even when in Galatians he kind of introduces himself in this way, that I went and talked to the other apostles who thought they were something, but when I talked to them, they were really nothing. And it's just like,
follow me as I follow Christ.
Yes,
Follow me.
That's
follow
it.
Me.
And like, I think on this side of deconstruction, I've learned how to recognize what's unnecessary, right? And so like now in this statement, like I realized the friction that's always been there that we didn't call out is why would I need to follow you as you follow Christ if I could just follow Christ?
Exactly.
What is the what's the need for the redundancy there?
Exactly.
Oh man, this is good stuff. All right, so let me hit y'all with some announcements again. Just as a friendly reminder, this show streams live every first Sunday of each month. And if you want to see it more than that, then you do your best to let us know by pushing these numbers, pushing this algorithm. For those interested in building community beyond superstition, join us every Sunday on this channel for Sunday sessions. I think I'm going to try to do my best to get Kyle to step in for us on one Sunday and just let him run the show. And, you know, even though I know Kyle is anti-Sundays, he's loving his breaks. He's loving his breaks right now. But I got a sneaky suspicion that Kyle loves people so much that if we have an opportunity for him to share something with the people and just have some conversations with the people and not have to feel restricted to being, you know, that person that you had to be before. Because, like, wouldn't it have been different, Kyle, if we were pastoring back then and we didn't have to pretend? If we felt that we could freely just show up any Sunday morning and say, hey, guys, I think I'm struggling with this. Yeah. I don't know if this is true. And instead of me having to force myself to talk about some shit that I really don't even believe and have to force myself to preach from a book that I've now preached from probably more than 5,000 times.
Right.
Can I just really talk about some shit that's on my mind? Like, wouldn't that be freedom? Like, I feel like Dave Chappelle at that moment.
Yeah, that would have been beautiful. But, you know, if I would have made that announcement in my church, all of the senior ministers and seasoned ministers, as we call them, they would have run up to me and started laying hands on me and rebuking the devil. That would have been the beginning of that whole thing. Some people probably would have left the church that day.
Yep.
So we could not be transparent. We could not be vulnerable. The best I was able to do is come to church sometime and say, guys, I'm sorry, I don't have a message today. Does anybody else have something they want to share? Yep. That was the best I was able to do. That was the most vulnerable and human I was able to be, because I could not go beyond that, you know. And basically, when I did that, the few times I did it, I was just so like, you know, on those days I couldn't fake the funk. I was in my depressive state so deep. I couldn't fake the funk. I couldn't muster up the falseness and the fakeness to muster out a message that day. So that maybe that probably happened 5 or 6 times throughout my 15 plus years in pastoring, that I just couldn't muster it. So all of those other times, which was most of the time, it was all a performance of, I'm here, I'm going to do my job.
Yep.
And I'm going to try to make it as authentic as I can. But it was never truly authentic. Never.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. You know, that was a real struggle with me. And I remember the last 5 years that I was pastoring, because I was getting the first probably 10 to 12 years of my ministry. I was more itinerant than local. So I traveled a lot. And so I didn't have to deal with a lot of local issues. And so because of that, the majority of my messages were very spiritual, over the top. I'd come in teaching about the fivefold ministry, the role of the apostle and the prophet, and how they work together, and how to train up prophets to see the will of the Lord. I was really deep and spiritual in those first 10 to 15 years, very revival centric. Those last 5 years, as I began to kind of take root in pastoring and really starting to deal with people, you know, coming in and actually having to preach messages that are not just, hey, this is how the apostolic works, or this is how the gifts of the Spirit works, but like now having to preach everyday life. I remember how much of a wrestle and how much of a struggle it became trying to pull those type of messages out of scripture. And I literally remember one time being in my study in my office. It was upstairs in my church. And I remember sitting up there, and before y'all be like, oh, he had a big church, it was upstairs. There was no AC up there, number one. So it was hot. So before you start thinking that I was just sitting on golden toilets and shit, no, that's not how it was. I was up there sweating and praying. But I was sitting up in my office.
My first office was a converted closet.
Yes,
that was the size of my office. It was a converted closet that had enough room for a chair and a little
Yes, sir.
table.
Come on, man. Like, hey, people don't know the struggle. But I remember like literally struggling with scripture saying, thinking to myself that the only way for me to actually make this relevant to today and to actually make it something that people can use is to twist it. Like I can't take this and keep it in its same context and keep it in its same nuance and make this relevant. So I have to now eisegetically approach scripture and make Jesus's story about the fishes and the 5 loaves about how God can make a way in your life out of little things. And eventually, like, I remember asking myself, like, but Darante, couldn't you do this with any story?
Right.
And if you could do this with any story, why are these stories so much important? And then, like, is it really? And this is what clicked in my head, Kyle. Like, is it really healthy to keep preaching the same stories over and over again?
Right.
It was a very
My,
simple thought, but that was
yeah,
devastating for me, man.
yeah.
How do you feel about that?
My buddy, and he's my best friend still, and we were in ministry together. He was my assistant pastor. And later on, as I started to break away and deconstruct and state my feelings more openly, and I hesitated to kind of talk to him about it because I knew where he stood, and I didn't know how receptive he would be to my changes. But he started noticing it along the way, and I made some reference to that point, like we have all these stories in the Bible that we never see any duplication of. And he goes in natural, apologetic defense. He goes, well, those stories are just to show people what God's capable of. To which I responded, now that I think, when I hear this stuff, my mind automatically goes to the next point. Well, what good is that? How does that help anybody?
Yeah.
How does that help anybody to know that if I'm standing in front of a real 10-foot man or woman as a giant and they're threatening to kill me, that I can pick up a stone and throw it at this person? No one's going to be ever stand in front of that scenario again. So what difference does it make if they show that God is able to help you kill a giant? You're never going to be fucking in front of a giant.
Nope.
What difference does it make if God showed a man walking on water? You're never going to have to fucking walk. I mean, so none of those things matter if God showed he was able to do it once, but never does it again.
Wow.
Never does it again. So it benefits nobody. It benefits nobody to have a inflated hope that if you get into a situation, the enemy is attacking, God's going to lift up a standard against them. It just perpetuates a false hope.
Ooh.
And what that really is designed to do, bro, is keep people nibbling at the fruit of it's going to get better.
Yes, sir.
And we will nibble at that fruit without ever realizing, damn, I've been eating this same fruit for the last 15 years and shit ain't really never got any better.
Nope.
And when you wake up from that hurts. It's very painful, and it hurts like hell. And you're at that point of you have to decide now, what are you going to do? And for me, the choice was very simple because my integrity as a human being wouldn't allow me just to continue peddling false hope.
Yeah.
I wanted to see people really get help and I wanted to see their lives get better. I mean, I grew up in the inner city.
Yes, sir.
I wanted people to take this word, take the gospel, whatever we call it, and use it and apply it to their lives to see their lives get better.
Yes,
but
sir.
It didn't. And I remember the day when I realized that I can no longer stand in front of people and sincerely give them this.
Yep.
I realized I can do it if I didn't give a fuck.
Right.
And
yes.
I wanted to just keep the prestige of being able to preach and stand up in
Come
front of
on now.
everybody. I know I can do that, but my integrity won't let me do that. It wouldn't. Because somewhere I know if I had tried, somewhere along the line, I would say, you know what, guys, I'm bullshitting you, you know.
Come on.
And I would have, you know, messed up somebody's church. So I walked away.
Yeah.
I wasn't forced away, or I had no scandal forced me out of it. Or I walked away because my integrity and my desire to help people was greater than any egoic state I had ever been in. I didn't know, I had no ego about that. And you know, that's difficult because being a pastor is a very powerful position, regardless of the size of the church you have. It's a very powerful position.
That's
because the very first day you walk into a church as a pastor and you realize that every eye and every ear is on you.
That's right.
That's a very powerful place to be in. And especially when you start saying things and you see people react to your words.
Yes.
Very powerful, very intoxicating. But for me, once again, my integrity and my desire to see people really get help was stronger than any power trip that I'd ever experienced as a pastor.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I just want to say, like, that's a major reason why we do promote content like this on this channel, is because, like, you know, I want people to understand that, yeah, there are some scammy pastors out there, but by far and large, the majority of them got into this because they really believe in helping people. And they want to find a way to help people. They likely believe this is the best way. Us doing shows like this, promoting content like this, it gives them permission and a new avenue to help people. It will allow them, especially as stuff like this grows, it would allow them to investigate what they're doing and finally say, oh, snap, I can help people a different way. I'm going to give you proof. The proof of this, Kyle, do you remember when the life coach movement hit the church? Now, at first it was like, you know, ain't no life coaches. No, nobody need to be no life coaches. But eventually what you saw is a lot of it. So like if you're studying the decline of the church, the life coach movement was a part of that decline. There were quite a few pastors who realized, like, oh shit, I don't have to talk about this shit no more to help folk. You know, I can move into an entirely different vein. I no longer have to tell you to give to me because God wants you to. I can just tell you that's my fee and that's the deal. And like, and I mean, like, thousands of pastors, probably millions, shifted to life coaches overnight. And while some still kept their churches, there were quite a few that stopped pastoring because it was like, this is a little more freeing. This is I can just kind of talk to you now, and I don't have to be put up on anybody's pedestal. Right. You know. It looks like we have two more callers getting prepared, and so wow. While we're getting ready for them, I'll close out with a few more announcements while we are preparing, and that is, of course, if you want your comments read aloud during tonight's show, send a super chat because we will read as many as we can. We've been able to read quite a few tonight as already. And again, we just want to send a big thank you out to the team who make this show possible every month. Because look, they put something in the chat already. I was not expecting that. All right. We got one in and one might be on, and we got one that's coming on. So it looks like we have Naya coming in. Ooh, I wonder, just because this is Naya from Texas, if this is the Naya that I know. And if it is, I'm expecting my wife to tell me in the chat because she knows that Naya as well. But while we are waiting for Naya to get situated, Kyle, I have another comment from last month's show. Okay. And this one is from Henry9348. And he said, I would like the comments of people on Genesis 6:6 and the Lord regretted creating man. How can God express regrets? Isn't he omni everything? Kyle, what do you think about that?
I recently did a TikTok video about that, and not in great detail, but just something to jar the thinking of everyone who heard it, who hadn't thought about this yet.
Yeah.
If that scripture's true, God regretted making man. Now, let me say this real quick. If we look at it in the timeline from Genesis 1 to Genesis 6, we're only 5 chapters in. Only
Yes.
5 chapters. Only 5 chapters in.
Project just started.
4 chapters after it said that this God looked at everything and created and said it was good.
Yo.
So, we can start there, right? We can start there.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe this God doesn't know what good really is. If 4 chapters later, he's like, oh, shit. But anyway. It said God said that it regretted making man.
Yeah.
But never, not once, in the entirety of the whole book, did that God say, I regret making Satan, making the devil. Now, the average prototypical Christian always comes back and says, well, that God didn't make the devil. He was an angel, he fell. And I said, well, I mean, what God is all knowing that we're talking about here? Which one is all knowing? Which one is the creator of everything? So
yes, sir.
You can't separate Satan's existence without pointing the fingers right back at God. You cannot.
That's right.
I don't care what Satan did or Lucifer did or this angel did. You cannot separate it. You can't. Because this God is an all-knowing creator, you believe.
The thing that gets me about that is, it's like, okay, so what you just went through is that there is this angel who was in heaven, which is supposed to be perfect. It's the place we're all supposed to be trying to get to. We're all supposed to be trying to get to, because when we get there, there's not supposed to be any crying no more. There's not supposed to be no hunger no more, but sorrow anymore. But according to the book, there was war in heaven.
Yeah. And
so God isn't even able to manage it.
Yeah, and it said, and I saw when iniquity entered his heart. He was still in heaven when this happened.
Was in heaven.
How did iniquity get in heaven?
Man.
So,
bruh.
Then I go on and I say in other places, hey, Christians, how do you have a real expectation that God's going to create a new heaven and a new earth when he fucked up both of those from the first jump?
Come on. Yes, sir.
He didn't create a perfect heaven, and he didn't create a perfect earth if the stories are true. So why are we holding on hope that God's going to give us a new heaven and a new earth and it's going to be all perfect?
Come on.
We got to think, because the people who compiled the Bible did not have enough insight to understand that the intelligence of humanity would increase over time. Yeah. And we would be able to look back at these stories that they compiled together and find tremendous flaws and contradictions in it all.
Yes,
they did not anticipate this day.
Yes, sir.
It was compiled for their purpose and their use to control people at that time. There was no long-term agenda for that collection of writings they put together called the Bible. It was for them at that time, and they used it for the purpose that they had intended. They had no idea that we would be able to look at this now with a much more critical eye and clearly and blatantly see the tremendous contradictions running throughout the whole thing.
And that's what I want to encourage everybody out there who's watching this, who is still on the other side of faith, or even if you're just listening, is that I want to remind you that you do not have to be locked into the misunderstandings of the past. No. There are a group of people who do not have the tools to know better. You are not a part of that group of people. You have the tools to know better. Let's do so, right? Yeah. All right. So we have our next caller in. This is one hell of a night. And this is somebody I know. This is a friend of mine, a coworker of mine. This is Naya from Texas. Naya didn't give us any pronouns, but I think Naya's pronouns are she, her, but she will correct me if I am wrong. But her question is, what are your thoughts on the origins of Jesus? Naya, talk to us. Tell us a little bit about this question, and let's see if we can build some conversation.
So my pronouns are pimp named Slickback.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
And my question is the origins of Jesus, because there's no J in the Hebrew language, which is why most Jews don't recognize Jesus. And so where did this person come from that we are blindly being led to follow? Because I'm honestly thinking that, Mary was doing something before she got married to Joseph. And now we have all been tricked into following this lie because she was promiscuous.
Oh man, this is good. All right,
right.
Kyle, I'm gonna let you hit this first, and then I'll tag it on the back end.
Number one, there's really no real historical data or evidence of Jesus existing. Whenever you read someone's so-called evidence, it's always premised around it is believed, it is said to have. There's no empirical evidence that Jesus ever existed. There are some theories that are out there that suggest that the Jesus persona was created by the Romans in efforts to help control this rowdy group of rebels that was always causing them trouble, the Jews. So when you think about the wording of Jesus, the pray for your enemies, this nonviolent kind of approach towards authority and oppression and rule, it's believed that they created this to give the people someone that they can kind of model and say, well, this was one of your people, and this is what you should be doing. So there's that theory out there, which is possible. To which I say, I'm at a point now of, if Jesus was real or not real, it's really of no consequence to any living person. It's never really been of any real consequence, because there is nothing that a Jesus really does for a person, and anything in it from a tangible perspective. The best someone can believe is that Jesus died and paid for their sins, and one day they're going to be in heaven with Jesus. Well, that's not tangible. None of that is tangible. So it's really inconsequential whether or not he was real or not. And we have tremendous data that shows someone's faith in Jesus does not change any real life issue or circumstance that they're in. It may give a person hope to go through a situation, but it doesn't do anything about the situation as far as changing it or ending it or make it any better. It doesn't whatsoever. But I think something else real important before I go is, we should, if Christians want to believe Jesus existed, okay, then Christians should have a real attitude or problem with Jesus for this reason. If the Jesus was real, and if the stories are real about Jesus, he went around healing all kinds of people. None of these people were believers. None of these people were Christians. None of these people had Jesus in their hearts. And if Jesus went around freely healing all of these people, but the same Jesus won't heal the people that are his followers, his believers, people that believe they have him in his heart, if this Jesus won't heal them with the same regularity that he healed all those other people, then Christians should have a problem with this Jesus, because they supposedly have a relationship with this Jesus. Those people didn't. Christians are supposedly Jesus's, part of Jesus's family. Those people weren't, and they were getting the best of Jesus. And Christians are getting the worst of Jesus. And that should wake people up if they give it thought.
That sounds like an absent father to me.
Yeah.
What you say? Well,
treat
that's what God is.
Great, but treat his own kids like trash.
Yeah, exactly.
God is the biggest absent father. And like if you read the Bible like a BET Tyler Perry movie, that's what's clear. is that God is the Father who doesn't show up. And so Jesus decides to follow in his footsteps and say, hey, I'm stepping out to get some cigarettes. I will be right back very quickly. And now here we are sitting 2,000 years later, dusty and musty as fuck, saying my daddy is coming back any moment. My daddy coming back. I believe he coming back to get me. But no, just to kind of hit some of the other things here, because this was a great question, Naya. I often view Jesus, I do have somewhat of a mythicist view of Jesus. But I also take the stance that if Jesus was a real person, like it would only mean something to me if he absolutely rose from the dead and returned quickly. He has not done either one of those things. And so that would just mean if he did live, he was just a nigga who was alive, who lied about some shit and then died and could not back it up. That is the most I can get from that. In that sense, Jesus to me is no different than Elvis or Tupac.
Dang.
Because after Elvis and Tupac died, there were many people who saw them, who witnessed them rise from the dead. And so all that tells me is that people were crazy back then and people are crazy now. When people die, they don't get back up. But I take it a step further. Because there's this idea, okay, what if Jesus was real and he's just late? I don't like the message that the man represents. I don't think we should be, and I don't think I'm wrong, but I'm just saying, just do some hypothetical speculative stuff. If I just so happen to be wrong and God was real and Jesus was his only begotten son, then I'd say that the human race needs to be putting together the fucking Avengers to take these motherfuckers down because they've destroyed the planet before and they will do it again. As a matter of fact, it's in the fucking plan. So that just not good guys. Jesus called a woman a dog. Mm-hmm. Jesus encouraged a woman to give her last to the church. Jesus taught that that for people who have the least, take from them and give it to the people who have the most. These are things that Jesus like literally taught. He taught that there are certain countries that should be condemned, and everybody says, oh, but he said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Your neighbor is the same person as you. Okay, when you're living in an ethnically centered region, your neighbor are people who look like you and believe similarly to you. If this was really a character who really believed in loving everybody, he could have kept the neighbor part out and just said, love everybody. But you do not have it on record in any place where Jesus says, love everybody. As a matter of fact, Jesus is the most name-callingest motherfucker in the whole Bible. He calls more people names than anybody, which is why I don't get it when Christians get mad at me when I name call, because Jesus called people vipers. He called people serpents. Like he was the name-callingest motherfucker out there. He could have had a whole comedy special on Netflix. He was this rude. Jesus would be canceled today. So I stand where Kyle stands. Like, not only, it doesn't even matter to me if he exists. Right. Now, the name was likely Yehoshua back then. Definitely not a J, which definitely speaks to the laziness of modern Christians who just go by a name that they heard Big Mama say, which, I mean, like, that's not how you're supposed to know God. You're not supposed to know God through Big Mama. You're supposed to know God for yourself. And why can't this nigga tell you his name? I'm sorry for saying nigga so much. This is just how I talk and I'm on a roll. But why can't he tell you his name for himself? And it's just because he dead. He is really, really, really dead. And it's been 2,000 years. Like, we really ain't got to wait no more. Like, we ain't got to pretend like this story could possibly be true. It's been over 2,000 years. Please let us not put this burden on our kids anymore, because the truth is, we have some beautiful people out here who think they can't live their own life and think that they can't do things because they think they need their approval of this imaginary security blanket. And in all reality, just in all seriousness, it's killing communities, And I'm gonna shut up for a minute. I'm gonna shut up. I've been talking. Naya, Kyle, what y'all
Good
got?
stuff. Good stuff. Good
Listen,
stuff.
I
I mean,
honestly, this is the last thing, and then I'm gonna drop. But it just, I feel like the religion altogether, because if you do your history and especially Black
mhm,
history, you know that William
right.
Lynch that here wrote a book about how to separate, divide, and conquer slaves and all this other shit, and
Mhm,
the Bible plays a
yep.
part
Hmm.
in that
Oh
because
yeah.
it's teaching your slaves to be good and obedient and listen. Because
Hmm.
you know, supposedly
Yes.
the way they let it be
Yeah.
told is
Slaves obey
that's
your
what Jesus
masters.
did,
Yeah.
which Jesus used to tear stuff up. So I don't know why they thought he was good and obedient, but you know, whatever. Um,
Yes.
that's just my take on it. Like, as like, you know, we talked about this before, Durante, as far
For
as,
sure.
you know, just get into the religion. It is something people are afraid to leave because they grandmama couldn't have possibly lied to them, you know,
Facts.
Yeah.
and they grandmama's grandmama couldn't have possibly lied to their grandmama type thing. So it's one of those generational, I don't know, blind leading the blind type things.
Wow. That's it.
And
That's it.
I think something too that struck me when I thought about it. How did I get here? Um, I had a bunch of people who taught my mother who were pretty illiterate. So, you know, their thoughts about Christianity, about Jesus, about God, was coming from a perspective of people that were pretty illiterate. You know, not totally, but most definitely struggled with education and a certain level of intelligence. And they were the ones who were teaching my mother. So, what did they really teach her? What information did they really have? So we talk a lot about those grandmothers and those, you know, those elders and those seniors who were doing all this teaching and kind of getting the next generations ready. I mean, you know, a lot of them really weren't very educated. And when you think about what it takes to become a pastor, nothing except for the ideal that you've been called. That's it. In every other facet of life where someone is charged to teach, right? You need credentials. You need valid credentials that you have passed tests. And the subject matter in these tests is unilateral. So if you're going to be a, a math teacher, you know, you have to pass the test of math. You have to pass these math tests. And the answers are going to be unilateral across the board, the right answer. So you have to know the right answer. So every math teacher will have to know the right answer. Electricians, if you're going to become a teacher of electricians, you know, I'm going to teach electricians how to be electricians. Well, you got to get your license. You got to pass this incredibly difficult test, and the answers you give have to be unilateral. All electricians. So, in all these other fields where people are charged with teaching and taking on a teaching role, they're certified, and the information they pass on is unilaterally the same, no matter where you go. But that's in preaching and pastoring is the only environment where you can stand up in front of people, have no credentials, no education, no unilateral message with everyone else, and get up every week and teach people. And I think that's something that really needs to be addressed in the church world.
You have never lied. Like that was a major thing for me because it wasn't just preaching on Sunday mornings, but then people begin to trust you with their marriages and
Yeah.
their parenting advice. And I remember like even after people knew that I no longer believed in God, they still wanted marital advice from me. And I'm like, I just don't see how you take your marriage seriously if you come into a pastor for advice. You know, like there are people who are trained in this. And we're actually working on bringing Dr. Bird on our channel, possibly on a Sunday session to talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm sure you remember hearing the idea of biblical marriages.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, okay, but pick a marriage in the Bible that you'd actually want to be in, though.
Yeah.
Like it's like
Like
when people
biblical
talk about
marriage is
biblical marriages,
horrific.
right? It really
Yeah.
go like when
Yeah.
people are talking about biblical marriages, they're really talking about what you said earlier, and that is Paul's writings.
Yeah.
They're like they're not, and who wasn't married, by the way,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so when they talk about biblical marriage, they're talking about this structure that Paul imposes That is, the wives submit to your husbands, children obey your parents, but you'll have long life. And it's just like, but if you actually, do you want Adam and Eve's marriage? You want that marriage where as soon as you do something and somebody asks something about it, your husband blames you, and scapegoats you. Do you want Abraham and Sarah's marriage? Like, are these? Do you want Moses and what is her name? Why can't I remember her name right now? I used to know it because it's so important, but it starts with a Z.
Yeah, I was like, not to. Wow.
Yes, Moses' wife.
Yeah, Moses'
wife. She's from Africa. So they say. But she goes out there and like literally cuts her children's foreskin to keep God from killing Moses. And I'm like, which marriage in the Bible would you actually want? And that's the same thing that goes back to that parenting question we had earlier, is like, which parent in the Bible would you want to be? Like, which parent in the Bible do you actually consider to be a good parent? I mean, considering God is supposed to be the best character and he kills his only son. So, like, which parent would you really want to emulate? Like, it's been one of my pet peeves.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, it looks like we have another caller that's getting ready. And so, and we'll make this the last call of the night. But as they're getting ready, before they come in the studio, I will drop in. We'll deal with another comment. And man, we actually had a lot of comments on that last show. I literally have 11 that I was been able to pull from. One of them was one of the people who called tonight, so that was good. Let me pick one of these. I'm gonna do this one because it tags you, and this is a person who was literally in the chat tonight. This comment was from Sharon Good 8257, who is a regular faithful supporter. We really appreciate you, Sharon. At about the 29-minute mark, Kyle Butler is answering a question on when did he stop believing. His response made me think of the woman that begged Jesus for help, and the subject of dogs came up. Oh, we mentioned that. Yeah. Jesus said he didn't help her kind. Then she said even the dogs get crumbs. But Bible God never gave Kyle a crumb. I never got a crumb either, so I'm not sure what he thinks of me. I'm glad I don't believe that BS anymore.
Yeah.
Whew, that resonates.
Yeah. Sometimes when people would attack me for no longer believing, what are you attacking me for? The responsibility to prove itself was never on me, and by my record, I proved myself damn well.
Yes.
So, if I'm in a relationship with someone, and let's say a woman, and I really love her, I've been telling her I love her, I'm going to do all these things for her, but I've never shown up. I've never done anything to really show this love, or maybe I was half-assed about it, sporadically showing love here and there. But I really love her, And she says, Carl, I'm sorry, but, I don't believe you really love me, and I don't want this anymore. I'm going to go. Now, if I really love her, if I really don't want to lose her, I will drop every bit of ego, pride, stupidity, whatever those barriers are. I would drop them and say, baby, please, I will prove to you that I can be better. I will prove to you that I can change. I will prove to you I don't want to lose you. I would do that. God never does that, does it? Oof. People are leaving this God left and right, like just dropping off by the thousands probably per week. And never, not once, this God show up at the door when they got their bags packed and they're running out the door. This God never stands up at the door and say, okay. I know all you really need is to see something real from me. Let me show you, because I don't want to lose you. That never happens. So don't blame me. Don't blame Darante. Don't blame people like us because we left. Blame your God for not showing us why we should stay.
Ooh. Because isn't that the whole point? Like, I have a right to need a good reason to stay.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness.
That's relationship 101.
Yes.
Why should I stay?
Why should I stay? Oh man. Ooh, that's so freeing. Oh my goodness. I don't know if it's the alcohol or what, but that hit me the right way. That's the spirit right there. We have our final caller for the night, and I'm like, this has been amazing. Can I say? And I have been looking at y'all in the chat. Y'all are absolutely amazing. Tonight we have with us Joe, him from New York, and there is always a thought. Let me put it back up. There is always that thought of what if. What advice would you give to those deconstructing and want to build their confidence with going in that direction? All right, Joe, talk to us about this question in your own words. Tell us about what's on your mind.
Hey guys, how you doing? I appreciate the time.
Yes, sir.
This is definitely my first time doing one of these calls, but I've always wanted to. I guess I've been in the process of deconstructing for a few years now. I've been a Christian, I would say, about 13 years. Met my wife there. We recently had a baby. She's 9 months old.
Congratulations.
Appreciate that. Sorry, I'm trying to talk a little low, not to wake her up. So,
yeah, understood. Remember those days very well.
Right. So I've been looking into a lot of things from the documentary hypothesis type of stuff, the origins of the writings, the archaeology, the historical background of the scripture, the people of Israel, all of that, the fact that they likely came from Canaanites, down to even the fact that Yahweh likely came from El and from a pantheon of gods, and all of these things. The fact that half of Paul's letters are like pseudepigrapha and stuff. And the fact that we don't know who even wrote the Gospels truly. I say all of that to say I don't know how to make this jump. I don't know how to, like, I just mentioned to you all the reasons. And the thing is, I've talked to a lot of people, especially in my church, especially people with apologetics and all that stuff. And I've had hours and hours of conversations, even with one of the pastors in my church and stuff. There's always reasonings that they give back. You know what I mean? There's always, well, have you considered this scholar, or have you considered this guy in apologetics? These writings in Genesis was actually a polemic and stuff like that, and they were really getting at the people in the other areas, like all of these reasonings, and then it's like the conversations would continue. It's like, all right, well, next time for your sources, come with, look deeper into the sources and the sources of those sources, and let's come back and break that down and all these things. And it's been years now, and I'm getting to a point of like, okay, how do I know if what I know is right? When do I draw the line? How do I, because obviously I told you I'm married, I met my wife in the church, all that stuff, how we're going to raise our daughter, all of these things are very important. And the biggest thing for me is that no matter which way it is, I just want to know what way it is so I can continue my life, because I feel like I've been on pause for years, because everything for me stems from this question, everything. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. I'm sorry it took long.
It does, and I want to ask a question, but before we jump on it, is your wife on this journey with you, or is she still a believer?
Still a believer. She knows everything that I have been going through. She's been extremely supportive and just kind of letting me do my thing to figure things out, and she respects it and all that. So, but yeah, she is still a believer. We were just at church today.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, first of all, that's beautiful that she's still supportive. That's definitely how my wife was. And so that's incredible. In all fairness, I say my wife, it was my second wife. My first wife was not supportive, which is why I had to move on to the second wife. But that's why I really did want to ask that question, so that we can kind of frame our responses there. And this idea of and I'll say this quickly because I want to chew on this a little more, and so I'll let you jump in, Kyle. But I do want to say one of the greatest freedoms that I've gotten from my deconversion and deconstruction process is that I don't have to know the way.
Right.
Like as a matter of fact, like there is no way. There's plenty of data. There's plenty of information, and I can grab a hold of as much of that information as I can, and can literally do my best with that information. But there is no pre-described way, and the only reason I say that is because, brother, I want you to kind of remove that pressure from yourself. Because that can lead to some unhealthy places where you'll really be stressing yourself out over some shit that you can't control. And so instead, you know, and this is literally what I did while I was going through my deconversion, is you know your heart. You know what you are in this to do. You know you're not out here just trying to turn against God to sin. You know what I'm saying? You know you didn't slip across the Ouija board, you know, and the devil has possessed you now. So instead, like, you know, even if you still have this idea of God, then treat God as a good God at that moment. That's what I had to do in my deconversion. That if I'm gonna have a God, you're gonna have to be a good God, which means you're gonna have to understand why I have these questions. You're gonna have to understand why I don't have these answers. And if you know me better than anybody else, then you know that I'm not doing this out of bad faith. And so I would encourage you to do what scripture suggests you do in all of your getting. Get understanding. And so for whatever what if you have, don't be satisfied until you turn over those stones and come to an answer. And if that answer still shows kind of what is showing now, that like, oh dang, there's not a God, I promise you there's nothing that you would have lost in that journey. In that journey, you would have learned the skills of how to critically engage life and how to critically evaluate whether something is able to be substantiated or not. And that's never going to be a waste of time. And so I'm going to shut up for a minute so I can chew a little more. And Kyle, it's on you, bruh.
Thank you.
There's two things I really want to point to. Number one, no God of any kind from humanity's existence, as far as we know, has never proven itself to humanity beyond question or doubt. When that hit me, when that realization hit me, it said to me that perhaps if there is a God of some kind or something out there that holds that place of supreme power, authority, whatever, then it appears as if it doesn't care if we know what it is at this point of the journey. It's perfectly okay with us not knowing. Because you have a young child, you just mentioned, 9-month-old baby. It is your responsibility and your wife's responsibility to prove yourself as the parent of that child, so that there's no question to your child as they begin to grow and mature and understand. It becomes unquestionable to them that you are, the parents. You and your wife are the parents. It becomes of no question, because you have proven yourself as their parents. I'm your mommy, I'm your daddy, I'm your mommy, I'm your daddy. Through that whole learning and growing process until they recognize you, it becomes undeniable, indisputable for them. Well, no God has ever done that to humanity. It is so ambiguous. It's so cluttered with possibilities. So I start there. So I don't think it's important for us to know. We just kind of got into this world, and there's some persuasions we've been under, and maybe some environments that we've been under, and we've been told that we should know, and we have to know, we have to be secure. Well, that was only based upon those environments we're in. And then number two is I encourage you to follow the journey to where it takes you. Because for me, every time I went where the journey was taking me, where I followed the journey, I landed at a place of peace. So when I thought, okay, grace is it, the message of grace, this is it, and I had a moment of peace there. And then when I still had a lot of questions, once I got to that point, I went to the next phase, unconditional love. God is pure unconditional love. God can't be, bad. That hell is not existent. God didn't make a devil, whatever. And I kept walking until I found places of peace. And I would stay there long enough to where the peace would run out, and it would take me to the next phase. And you may land at a place where you still hold on to some of these things, but you have complete peace about it, because peace brings rest. So I know I'm at a place now. I have such rest. I have no fear about it. I don't question it. I don't try to figure out what it is or what it's not or anything like that, because I've come to that place of peace about where I am. And if this place one day no longer serves me, then I'll follow to wherever that next place is. And I think that's my best advice that I can give.
You know, I just want to jump in really quick and say it is just something that I think is often overlooked, is that often for those of us who have deconverted, we don't typically deconvert to a life of knowing the answers.
Right.
The actual liberty is no longer having to pretend to know the answers. And no longer having to live like I know something is true. And so I think sometimes people don't understand that there's a distinction between atheist and anti-theist. There are some of us who are atheists, which just means I don't have a good enough reason to believe in God. It doesn't mean I'm against the idea of there being a God. It just means, watch this, that I've realized that I've lived a majority of my life putting the cart before the horse. I had the belief before I had the reason. I had the belief before I had the evidence. And so becoming an atheist isn't saying I hate the idea of God. Now, I'm not too happy of the idea of this Christian God because this dude is a jerk. But it's like, no, it's now being comfortable enough to say, holy shit, I don't have to pretend to know shit that I don't know. And I don't have to live like I'm going to be judged if I don't pretend to know it. And I think that was the hardest part about being a believer. I had to say that I know for a fact that there's a God.
You know that you know.
Yes.
Right? Isn't that the phrase? Like, you got to know that you know.
Yes, sir.
And
it's like, nope. My journey of being an atheist is now being like, no, I don't know if there is a God, so I don't have a reason to believe that there is a God. A God has not revealed itself to me. So if there is a God, and this is how I reason this thing out, if there is a God, it does not find it to be important or significant to interact with me. So I should,
like, okay.
Yeah, that's right. So
it's
I probably shouldn't be wasting my life thinking about it.
Exactly. If there is something of that godlikeness or whatever, it has proven to humanity that I don't care to really let you know now, or to reveal myself, or to show myself, or to prove myself. And I think that if there is something out there like that, it's just doing whatever it does. And we made it of major importance. We have. And I just think that that's an endeavor we should have never been on.
Yep. Oh, I agree. Joe, I know we've been talking, but you brought us a good topic. What do you think, man? What do you think?
No, I appreciate all of it. I've been taking it all in. I feel like the things that you guys are saying are really standing out. I think especially this aspect of, my daughter, no matter what, is gonna know that I'm her father.
Yes.
I'm gonna make sure that she does. I'm not gonna leave it to be something that's ambiguous. Like, I'm not gonna leave like a riddle for her to solve, or like an obstacle course to go through to get to me. And everything that I've been looking at in terms of this, like even breaking down Genesis, if you want to take it literally, it just, none of it makes sense. It all equals out to putting me in a situation just because you want me to have free will. You put me in a situation where my soul is at risk for eternal damnation, and you knew that this was going to happen. I do feel like it really does, that really stuck out to me a lot. I do think that I'm struggling, and this is a me thing. You know, like
Yeah, for sure.
one thing I've learned is that I haven't been, I've been always given the instruction
Mhm.
and what to do, whether the Bible or advice or anything like that. I haven't really had a chance to have my own autonomy. I haven't
Yeah.
Mm,
really had this opportunity to make decisions for myself.
right.
Yeah.
And I'm a grown man with a child now, and I'm extremely insecure in those ways, you know,
Yeah.
like, and it's just now that going through this process is like I'm realizing, wow, I have autonomy now. You know, like I
Right.
have the choice is mine, decisions are mine. But the thing is, the crazy thing is that I'm still struggling. Like I'm still seeking like almost like a stamp of approval from the people that I believe are much more well learned than I am.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, like those people that have those roles, whether it be a title or a degree or you know an an apologetic YouTube channel, whatever it is, like it just I in my mind I make myself inferior, even though I've
I was
gone
just about to say that.
yeah, even though I've gone so far past your layman
Mhm.
Hmm.
with how deep I've gone with this, and if I've had to go this deep, why in the to still not see you, to still question, and then I've only
Yes.
have
Yeah.
more questions. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. I'm done. I'm done.
No, this
No,
is
no, you're
good, man.
good. I mean, think about again. I try to make it human.
Hmm.
So I think once we started humanizing these scenarios, to me, it made perfect sense. So
Yep.
if you keep it in relation to your daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
I remember I begged for years, begged God, reveal yourself, show yourself. I would come home from work in my early 20s, and I would go straight to my room, fall on my knees, and immediately start praying. And in those prayer moments, those first few years, I would beg God, God, I want to see your glory. God, I want to see your glory. I'd
Mm-hmm.
read that scripture in Revelation where it says, I will sup with you and you will sup with me. And I wanted to sup with God. So, have this interaction basically what that
Mm-hmm.
means.
Yeah.
And I wanted that so badly. I wanted that more than I wanted anything else. Every day I would fall on my knees and beg God, show me your glory. Come sup with me. I want to sup with you. And it never happened. Now I pushed it aside and moved on to other things at some point. But I can't imagine, and I don't have any children yet, but I couldn't imagine my child one day begging for me.
Yeah.
And I
Mm-hmm.
just act as, and I hear it. I hear it.
Yep.
I hear it. And I'm just totally, I do nothing. I can't imagine me doing that, you
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
know? And I don't care what you did,
Yep.
I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
care. So when I think about it from the human perspective, and we're supposed to believe that this is a good father, if this God is a good father, a good God, well, then why are you such a derelict to your children who really
Yeah.
only wanted to feel you in a real way or see you in a real way or have you in a real way? I wasn't asking for money. I wasn't asking for houses and cars and a big ministry. I was just
Come
asking to
on.
spend real time with my dad, who I thought my heavenly father. That's all I wanted.
Oof.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And it scarred me later on as I realized, as I unpacked a lot of trauma, because I was rejected by my natural father and rejected by the
Yep.
man who raised me.
Yep.
So, that just created deeper internal turmoil and trauma for me. And that feeling of Well, no real father ever wanted me. You know,
Oh man.
what's wrong with me? You know?
Mm,
So those are the kind of things now I look back on and realize that, you know, if this God can't be a better human than I'm willing to be, then I don't want that God. And that's my place.
mm, mm.
Whew.
Man, you about to make tears come to my eyes, man. With the similarities and all that. Every night on
Yes.
my knees praying the same prayer, basically, and in tears at times, and
Hmm.
serving in ministry and all these things, and doing everything I can um, to obey and follow and to see, but it's kind of crazy because it's like I'm the one with the questions, asking the questions and all of that. And
Yeah.
if I walk away because I don't see it, and I don't see you haven't made yourself revealed, it's still my fault
Yeah.
because I didn't believe. All of these things, So it's just I would never do that to my child. Never.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. And that's the other side of that kind of hits on some of the things you were hinting at a little earlier. Is you already know that, like you already know, like this is not a way to father children. The other part of that is you finding the confidence to trust in yourself.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
the same Bible that tells us to in all of our getting get understanding also tells us not to lean into our own understanding. So it
Yes.
does become quite a bit of a mind fuck there. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
like what do I do? And then you've also probably heard repeatedly that, like, our righteousness is just as filthy rags, and God is smart and his ways are way above our ways.
Right.
But what I like to try to remind people of is, like, nothing really works like that. In order to know and understand anything, you're going to have to exercise that muscle. And
Mm,
like even when you're like weight training, they have a word for it. You have to go through muscle failure. Like
Hmm.
you don't get to growth without going through failure. But this type of mindset ends up making us averse to failure and making us feel like failure is likely the judgment of God, or failure is evidence that I just suck and can't do anything right, and therefore
mm,
is proof that I can't do anything without God. As opposed of if we would have had a more healthy relationship with these things, we would have been told from a young age that failure is how you learn. That, as a matter of fact, failure is the most valid and the most effective way to learn in the
Hmm.
world, which
Hmm.
again is why it's a shame that we test children at the ending of the year instead of testing them throughout the year as a tool for them to learn from the test, because you learn more from the test than you learn from the class itself. We learn from the failures.
mm,
We learn from the things that we get wrong. That's the beauty of life. That's what makes our species our species. Is we wouldn't have the types of homes and vehicles and technology that we have today if we didn't start off exercising that muscle with teepees and huts, and then just moving from there and there. Like, we have to get back comfortable trusting, not watch this, not just trusting your ability to get it right, because that's the superstitious thing. It's superstitious to think that every decision I make is gonna be right. I don't have all the variables. I don't have all the information. I am not omnipresent, and I shouldn't put that pressure on myself to be so. There are things that I'm not going to know. So the best that I can do is take the information that I have and try to make the best decision that I can. But because I no longer feel that there's this predestined way of doing anything, I don't count losses the way that other people do. Like,
mm.
me, every loss is an opportunity to learn. I'm no longer afraid of losing because there's no longer a judgment tied to it.
Yeah.
It's no longer, oh, you must have disappointed God, that's why this didn't go right. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm,
so it's getting that freedom to trust yourself again and to be confident in your ability to learn. to learn from your wins and to learn from your losses. And I really want to encourage you to just kind of embrace that freedom, not to define yourself by even those terms. That failure is an event, not a person. And as a matter of fact, I should embrace that event because there is more fucking wealth in failure than there is in anything else. And I do the best I can to encourage people to keep falling, God damn it, just fall forward. Yeah. All right, I'm shut up a little bit.
No, thank you so much. That is, yeah, it's so true. Like nothing else in my life do I treat this way, where I have so much fear with making a decision, and it's because of the fear is eternal torment. You know, like it's just that. And if you think about that, it's like, so I'm fear mongered into staying here. It's like, I really appreciate this, guys. Yeah, this has been very helpful.
Well, man, we definitely appreciate you for being on with us. Thank you so much, man. This has been an absolute incredible show tonight. Kyle, you got any last words for Joe's call? Like this was amazing.
Yeah, I just would tell Joe to follow his instincts. You know, trust himself, like you were saying, to follow his instincts.
Yes.
And you know, you'll land exactly where you're supposed to be, and hopefully, you know, you'll come to that place of peace, that you'll have peace about where you are. And once you get there, you know, it's really beautiful. It really is.
It is. I think for me, Kyle, like the moment that it became clear to me that perfection no longer had to be something I strived for,
Right.
that I had no evidence of perfection. I had no reason to believe that humans were once in this perfect state and we just fucked it up.
Yeah.
Instead, I've been able to go back and take the long view of actual history and realize that as a species, though it has been ugly, and yes, it has been ugly, you know, no uglier than any of the other primate species, no uglier than any of the other species on this planet, but it has been ugly. But God damn it, it has been a rise.
That's
and
right.
we have been rising as a species. And I find that absolutely beautiful. And I hope we can find some type of hope in that and some type of inspiration in that, to say like, we are incredible. And if we can learn to truly value each other and truly love each other, truly support each other, like I hate to use church lingo, Kyle, but you know, the best is yet to come, you know?
Yeah. You know, if you think about it, like you're saying, Darante, and I totally agree with you, humanity has improved and we are improving, and I believe we'll continue to improve. But if you start with where the Bible ends, we can say without question that humanity has become more moral without that God.
Yes, sir.
Because all of the immorality that God represents and supports stops, you know, it's all contained in that book. Humanity has said, slavery? Nah, we don't really want that. Stoning our children? We don't want to do that either. This misogyny and patriarchal view of women, we don't want to do that. We that just doesn't feel right anymore. So where the supposed moral God of this book stopped, we've taken it a step further. So that's a testament to humanity.
Yes, sir.
It's not a testament to Christianity. It's not a testament to Jesus. It's a testament to humanity. And for everyone who wants to hold on to the ideology that, or the belief that Jesus is the perfect representation of God, for all of those that want to hold on to Jesus so dearly, that Jesus is the all in all and the be all, why didn't Jesus ever once condemn any of those things?
Come on.
That his Father supposedly instituted? Why didn't Jesus come to to the defense of his father and say, guys, that wasn't dad. That wasn't dad. You know, when he said, take your children out and stone to death for the disobedient, that wasn't dad. That wasn't dad. You know, when Moses said, go out there and kill all those Amalekites and you know, all the people they slaughtered in genocidal acts, that wasn't daddy. No. You know that story with Noah and God flooded the whole earth and killed everybody. That wasn't dad either. You know, there was never any moment where Jesus made any declarative statements that this is wrong, we shouldn't do this, da. So again, and I know sometimes people bring up, well, what about the woman at the caught in adultery? Well, he didn't say she shouldn't be stoned to death.
He
just
did
kind of
not.
put the light on them and said, well, if you don't got sin, then cast the first stone. He didn't say no one should be stoned to death for this. This is wrong. Where did we get the stupid stuff from? He didn't make a definitive defense that it was wrong.
Nope.
He just tried to shame them into saying that you got issues too.
Come on.
So to what you were saying earlier, Jesus is not this knight in shining armor like people have made him out to be. Not at all.
Not in the least bit. Not in the least bit. This has been, again, this has only been our second episode of the Ex-Pastor Call-In show, and it's just been phenomenal. I don't know if I expected it to go this well. Like, the calls are amazing. They're thought-provoking. And this is absolutely what I wanted. And I am looking forward to us doing more of this. We are wrapping up as of now. Kyle, before we go, how can people find out more about you and just share a little bit of your contact information so people know how to connect?
Well, my Cashapp is.
Yes.
So if you want to talk to me personally, you let me get my Cashapp information. You send that seed and you send in that offering, and I'll spend some one-on-one time with you. No, but I'm on Facebook and Twitter mostly. That's where you'll find most of my deconstruction, anti-religious, anti-Christian stuff. And again, I'm not here to try to tell anyone what to think or what you should believe, or I'm not trying to teach anyone anything. Yeah, I'm just here sharing my experience. That's it. And if yours differs and you're happy with it, great. I'm sharing mine. I'm never going to tell you that you're wrong or you shouldn't have it. And if you ask me personally about what I think about something, much like the callers tonight, I'm going to only share my perspective. Yeah. Not what you should do. So, we're here as voices of, commonality. If you're in this place, we're not here as voices of trying to tell you what to do. We let that mantle go a long time ago.
Yes, sir. That, like, oh my goodness, Kyle, like you're gonna make me like want to go all the way back into like a whole nother episode. But this has been great. Of course, I want to thank you for being here with me. You've been an exceptional partner, man. Like this has been incredible, and for so many reasons. I'm gonna put you in the back now, and I'll drop in just a few. I'll be back there. I want to thank everybody for tuning in with us. All right, production team is on it. I love y'all. Y'all are doing the dang thing. But I want to thank everybody, man, and especially Kyle and our team. But I hope you see this, because Kyle just hit something that's extremely important. And that is, we're not here to be your teachers. We're not here to be your gurus. Those are the mantles that we let go. What we want to do this show for is to help all of us learn that conversations are absolutely powerful. Is that you don't need a lecture, you don't need a dogma, you don't need somebody else's blueprint. Sometimes you just need an idea from hearing somebody else's perspective. And the most freeing thing about being on this side of things is now knowing that, like, hey, I don't have to agree with everybody, and everybody doesn't have to agree with me, because all of our ideas, all of our identities are shaped by our very unique lived experiences. Your opinions, the things that you feel strongly about are going to come from the experiences you've actually lived through. And there is no amount of wisdom I can have that can actually override your lived experience. So instead, what's better for us to do, instead of looking for a one size fits all dogma, instead of looking for some scripture that we should all be living by, instead of looking for some program that we should all be following, we should just be committed to learning from each other's experiences, turning those uniquely lived experiences into shared experiences, that we begin to learn from each other and begin to say, like, wow, I would have never even thought about the world like that if I never heard that. And that's one of the things that for me makes this show special. It's one of the reasons why we get excited to be able to be here once a month and actually engage these conversations, because it's one of the few places in the world where we can actually do so, where we're not coming here to tell each other how fucking wrong we are. And some of you are fucking wrong. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And guess what? So am I. A lot, probably. Probably not as much as I'd like to admit, but I'm sure it's a lot. But that is that's the life. Like, I tell my wife all the time, like, you're not going to be okay in life until you get okay with fucking up. Until it becomes clear to you that you're not going to get it right every step of the way, it's going to be really hard for you to find happiness. But once you learn how to embrace these happy little mistakes, and that's a shameless plug for a series that we got coming up on Sunday sessions. So make sure y'all be looking out for that. But no, in all seriousness, like, learn how to live, learn how to go with the flow, and learn how to learn from other people's experiences. And that's what we're committed to. I love you all so much. Thank you for hanging out with us on the Ex-Pastor Call-In Show. We have had one hell of a show today. I don't even know what else to say except for until next time, man. Y'all keep rising. Love y'all. Holla. Keep doing what you do and all that good jazz. Y'all, we'll holla at y'all later.
jwoodbeats.com. I can do anything. Fuck your opinions and energy. I finally got the epitome. My biggest hindrance was God can't do nothing but fail. Greater is me. I never needed your deity. All of this human capacity. When it gets rough, I can pick myself up and prevail. I can do anything. Fuck your opinions and energy. I finally got the epitome. My biggest hindrance was God can't do nothing but fail. Greater is me. I never needed your deity. All of this human capacity. When it gets rough, I can pick myself up and prevail.